What's up, Wackadoo Racing Channel? Welcome back. So we're going to be doing a Fairlane 500 episode. Kate has started to make some decisions about what she wants the direction of the car to actually be, and that means it's time for us to start doing some of it. Now, it's going to take a little bit longer because that's how it works. We've got a lot of things going on. But ultimately what it boils down to is it looks like she's going to be looking at a little bit more of a pro touring / resto mod profile for the car. And we're going to be starting with the interior. Now, based on the fact that this car is so original, I know a lot of you right now hearing that look like this.
What's it doing? Stupid fat helmet. It ruins it.
We don't care. We're going to be taking things out of the car that she doesn't like, and we're going to be modernizing them in the way that she likes it, because it makes it so that she wants to participate in this game. And ultimately, this car is never meant to be resold. We're building this car for her the way she wants it, and that's what it boils down to. There is an opportunity that you can rectify your self-righteous sense of moral ambiguity because we took out factory parts. Anything we take out of the car, you guys can purchase if you'd like. We're going to be holding on to the things that we do remove that are factory original, and if you guys want to send us some money, we'll send you some parts. But she doesn't want them, that means they're coming out. First things first, we're probably going to be removing the front bench and putting in something to the effect of like a pro car bucket front seat, and that means that we need to re-dye the rear seats to match what the front seat's going to be. So you're going to have to go from blue to black because she likes the black leather. So we're going to start with that. We actually found both original build sheets underneath the rear seats. Now, the other one's actually in better condition and has more data and the original factory VIN tag in the back. But seeing both of them there in completion is pretty cool. It shows us that the car is as original as we were told it was. So that's pretty cool. We're actually going to not be messing with those at all. We're going to put them back exactly as they were, even though we're redying the seats. So we'll show you that. We're going to be using Duplicolor vinyl and fabric specialty coating. I've used this stuff in the past with great results, and in a low traffic area like the rear seat, since there's not a lot of rear passenger action in this car, it's going to last a really long time. Now, in previous applications, I've used it, and on a daily driver, it had to be applied semi-frequently, every couple of months, to really keep up that nice finish in certain high traffic areas like shoulder bolsters and stuff like that. But in the back seat, this will probably never wear out, and it actually puts on a really convincing finish that it's original black leather. So we're going to show you what that looks like before and after. So here's our back seat as it sits. This is the factory blue. This is actually the bottom with all of its stitching and everything. So she's gonna go ahead and get it all cleaned up with acetone, and we're gonna start applying our finish. Should look something like this. There you go. Give it a little spinny spin, nice and slow. So that's not an illusion. It does look like brand new black leather. In person, it looks even better than it does on camera. This stuff is really convincing. So if you're ever looking for a solution like this, this is the way to go. If you've got good leather and you just don't like the color or it's starting to fade, I suggest you try it. This stuff lasts a long time, it looks great. So we're gonna go ahead and get these reinstalled. Okay, so now that we have our actual seats painted, the interior trim that goes around it needs to be kind of rectified because we can't install those until we do these, and subsequently the quarter panel door trim until these are done. So we're going to start working on that, but that means that we had to make a decision on the interior trim panels because they go all the way to the back. So let me show you what that entails. So in this instance, this lower panel here, we're going to replace with aluminum, and then the top skin up here where your shoulder would ride, we're going to repaint, but that trim goes up into the trim on the C-pillar, up around the window, all the way down in the back around the round. So we're going to have to replace all that and start talking about wrapping or replacing the sail panels. So we're going to deal with that as well, but for now we're going to just work on trying to get this stuff worked on. So let's show you what color she picked for that. Kate is in process of prepping these with acetone, and then we're going to Scotch-Brite them and wipe them down with acetone one more time in preparation for our repaint. Now we're going to be using Duplicolor Perfect Match. This is basically just their factory color replacement. Now we're using GM original color. That means that this is a factory color. It'll be on the shelf anywhere we go and easy for us to replicate later rather than having to have custom paint matched every time. But this is the closest to the color that she wanted for the interior. Now, this happens to be GM light driftwood. It's $11 a can on Amazon, and we can rematch it anytime we want, which means for the rest of the interior of the car or anything else we want to do for trim, it's not going to be hard to replicate. Alright, there we have it. So there's our windowsill basically, and we got it all stripped down, threw some primer on it, and painted it up with our GM Perfect Match light driftwood. This is the color she wanted for the interior. So we're going to be able to put the trim back on that, and we're going to start pulling some of the trim out of the back window there and start doing that too. So those panels are going to go right here, and then the lower section of the quarter right here we're going to remake out of aluminum, so that'll look really nice. We're going to be pulling all this trim out as well so we can color match it to that color. You can tell that the seat turned out really nice, and it's just sitting in there right now because I didn't have room to leave it in the garage. We're going to pull this back out so we can go ahead and get to all this. We're going to remake these sail panels, and we're going to wrap and re-vinyl this back deck cover. So we're going to start doing that right now. Yeah, this next part should be fairly straightforward. These panels are just flat, and we're actually going to be alleviating it of several of these holes, so we're only going to be using the window crank hole. So we're going to take this guy, transfer it onto some aluminum, get it all cut out. Okay, so that's the final result. There's our color that we're going to be using, and there's our lower quarter rear. So those are going to come out. We're going to end up Scotch-Brighting those down, kind of put a little bit of a grain finish on them. But that's pretty much what that's going to look like. So now we just got to replicate the same thing on the other side. Bippity boppity bead roller. Ta-da! All right, so there's our driver's side. I'm going to take a little bit of the warp out of it, get it cleaned up with some Scotch-Brite, and then we'll start drilling some holes and get it mocked up for install. And there we have it. Just both of our lower skins are all Scotch-Brited up and look nice and pretty. She wants to leave them raw, so we're going to do it that way. So now we're going to move on to trying to do something with the sail panels and this back deck. It's actually fairly good structurally. This material is starting to fall apart a little bit, but it's still strong enough that since we're not packing anything up there, it's not going to be a big deal. We're just going to go ahead and refelt it. We're going to leave these holes available because we're going to end up adding speakers later. But for now, we're just going to cover over them, and then we'll cut them when the time comes to add speakers. But that should get us, this will cover like 70% of what was ugly in the back of the car just by recoating this. So we're going to do that now. There you have it. There's the back package tray all refelted. And obviously down here we actually have the recesses where we can cut out for our speakers later, but until we do that, we're going to just leave those voids. So that looks a lot better, and we obviously repainted our trim too. And hopefully we'll drop that in the back window, and then we can start figuring out what to do with these bad boys. So now we're taking the journey of going from the factory blue color to the color we want to swap it to. And it's kind of a pain in the neck because the paint does have a tendency to react if you don't clean it really well. Sometimes we have to sand them down, start over, primer them, the whole deal. But that's going to have to happen for all of the trim that goes around the back window. So that's some big pieces here. We got our color match paint, so we're going to start doing that. And then as soon as this stuff is all setting up, we're going to address the sail panels. But let's take a look at that back deck. That looks a million times better in the back there. Obviously, we got some spots where the tabs were adjusted up for where it holds it. So it's going to take a little while for those to level back out if they ever do. But the seat covers that, so you're never going to see it. But all that's looking pretty good. So now we just got to get this trim painted up and put back in. Okay, a little time's passed. I'm steadily picking my way through getting all this stuff painted. Still got a couple pieces to go, 2 more pieces to go, and then I can go back in. And Kate is working on the sail panels. So on the passenger side, we had a good sail panel, and it looks pretty good. However, on the driver's side, it was evidently subject to either a little bit more sun or possibly some type of water damage. But it needs to be replaced. Now, there's a couple ways you can do that. Now, for the interior snobs, I know they're like, oh, my interior is made out of Peruvian kitten dicks or whatever. We're not doing all that. There's nothing special about sail panels. They're just a piece of foam board. So we're using cardboard, and then we just put some outdoor tape on it just so that it has a little bit more structure to it and isn't quite as prone to the moisture. So now we're going to go ahead and wrap those in our leather, and then we're going to do the same dye we did on the back seats so that it all matches. And then we can go ahead and get those installed and start putting the trim back in. Okay, it's next afternoon and we got everything installed. So you can see, obviously we got blue in the front, but then we're transitioning to our new color and everything. So here's our new color, our black seat, our sail panels, and our new felted deck. And all that trim in the back has been all color matched into. So that looks pretty sweet. I'm pretty happy with that. So I think tomorrow we're gonna go ahead and start working on the front doors. Now we're gonna do the front doors. I think we're gonna do something pretty similar, but we're obviously gonna have to work around our door handle there. We're gonna have to integrate that into the new design. So we'll see if we can get that off of there and see what that looks like. So now we got our skin, that's off. We're gonna trace it out onto our sheet, and then we're gonna go ahead and cut it. We're gonna be eliminating this little door pocket. So we're just gonna be cutting the holes for that. Hopefully that'll make a real smooth look, and we don't have to deal with that so much. So we're gonna start by just tracing this out and getting that cut. The old Bead Rollinator 5000 got our crinkly piece of bacon all figured out. The stepper die definitely puts a lot of warp in this material, and so this is 050. It still took a lot of warp. So with the rivets and everything, we got it pretty under control on the car, but I'm gonna need some practice because I'm really good at this. But I'm happy with how it looks on the car. So tomorrow we'll get this cleaned up, scotch brighted, swap out all the hardware, and reassemble that door, and then move on to the passenger side door. There you go. So there it is. There's the front and the back with the gold trim on it. I'm gonna go pop that door open. You guys see what that looks like. There is our door. So not perfect. I was still fighting warp across the bottom a little bit, and I think on the other side I'm gonna try, what I did was I went with the interior and then I rolled the exterior bead. So I'm gonna try doing that in the opposite order, and hopefully that'll get us there. But that looks really nice. Blacked out the bottom of the door and then repainted the trim, and obviously blacked the interior color out. So that looks pretty good. Everything still works. Very simplistic. We didn't cut out the door pocket. We actually mounted that straight to the surface, and it makes it so everything looks really nice and smooth. I'm pretty happy with that. Now it's time to get that one out of there. All right, got that one all bead rolled out, and we got our final hardware all in place, and everything's all good to go. That all works. So now we just have to paint the armrest and get it on there. I had to pick between bead roll that or paint. I figure paint can sit overnight. It's like 150 degrees in the garage all day, so it'll basically cook while I'm at work. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that prepped and all good to go. And tomorrow, while we get this put back on, I think Daniel left with my freaking screws to put this back on. I think he went to work with my freaking screws in his pocket. This is why we can't have nice things. Anyway, so we have a new steering wheel. It's down there, and we're gonna pop that bad boy out as well. So working on a few things. So I'm gonna go ahead and start prepping this for paint. The last door trim is sitting here, just painted it. It's tacking up. I'm gonna let that bake for a little while, and then we can go ahead and put the last piece on that'll tie up the rest of the doors, and that's all done. So we're gonna move on for now while we let this sit to something a little bit more exciting. We're gonna swap out that steering wheel for something a little more modern. So there's our factory boat steering wheel. It's actually not in terrible shape. It could probably be restored. Somebody wanted to fill the cracks with resin and so on and so forth, but not a big fan of it, and it doesn't really match the interior direction we're going with. And Kate really likes the look of this one. So this guy's going to go in its place. This is obviously a 6-bolt steering wheel, so we had to go from a 6-bolt to a 6-bolt adapter to a 3-bolt so that we can use a Grant adapter. I'll show you what that all looks like, but this is going on there. So let's do that. We used our handy dandy steering wheel puller to pop that bad boy off. And now what we're going to do is we're going to use this Grant adapter kit, slap that on there, find the right size cover, and then that will go to that adapter. So let me start with this thing. Okay, so for this particular application, it's a little different than normal Grant steering wheel adapter, where it's got these guys that are spring-loaded and all that, because we're using an aftermarket steering wheel. So basically what you're saying is normally you would just have this adapter, but this one actually has a conductive wheel on the backside. So these two posts are spring-loaded, and they need to make contact in order for the horn to honk. So in this case, as soon as we put this in place, it's now under contact, and we can just touch the two together. So that's kind of cool. That's a unique thing from Grant that makes it so you don't have to do a bunch of chopping of the column or anything like that, of the wiring in the original column. So I like that. That's cool. But we got to try and finagle all this other stuff together, because what we need is we need this to be on there, we need this cover to cover that up, and then we need this to go on that to adapt to our 6-bolt wheel pattern. So a couple of things there that we have to try and get all tidied up so that it'll all go together, and hopefully we can get it so it lines up straight. So that's what that's supposed to look like, but button too deep. So I gotta cut the end of this off. Not really a big fan of that because that means that there's a potential of damaging it later. But we want to use this horn button with that steering wheel and this whole thing, and I don't want to add another adapter, so we're just gonna cut off the dead space here. So it's actually got this big nubbin for beating the snot out of it with a hammer to get the steering wheel off. So we're just gonna cut that off flush with the nut. All right, there it is, sweet new wheel. And so I just got to put the shift bezel back on. We went ahead and put our 45 ACP turn signal indicator on there. So we're gonna go ahead and cap that door, and I think that's gonna be it for the night. But I feel really good about that.
Oh, that's pretty. That's really pretty.
It's so pretty.
Excellent choice. With a functional horn button? Boop, boop, boop. You're so much cooler than me.
Okay, late Friday night. There we are. We got our wheel and got all of our armrests back in place. I think what we're going to do is we're going to end up doing the same thing we did on the back seat on the front seat for now, because the seats she wants are rather expensive. So it's going to be a little while before we can make that happen. We're going to come back later and start working on getting the dash a little bit more cleaned up because it's got a big eruption in the middle, and we're going to be dyeing the headliner and carpet and all that stuff. So we're going to be kind of working on this a little bit more in the future, but as for right now, I think that's it. I think that's pretty much it for what we've gotten done on the Fairlane this week. Aside from all the interior work, and that's going to be continuing. So if you haven't subscribed already, subscribe. That way you can continue to follow us as we start to make our advancements in this car in the near future and get it the way we want it. Aside from that, really the only thing that we've done is we did a bunch of carburetor adjusting, pretty much double the horsepower of the car because it was running pretty bad before. And then while I was looking around out in the back, it turns out I had a brand new Edelbrock Performer 4-barrel manifold for this car sitting in the trunk of the Maverick. So that might be something that happens in the future as well. So we'll see. But for now, I think that's it this week, and we'll see you on the next one. Wackadoo out.